We believe that videos, images, words, and sounds have the absolute power to inform, inspire, and entertain. We are united under the virtues of safety and knowledge. We are a training community of learners and teachers who encourage and energize each other to achieve greatness. We are pilots, videographers, photographers, freelancers, business owners, enthusiasts, experts, and apprentices. We are creators. We are the Drone U.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another awesome episode of Ask Drone U. My name is Paul.
And I'm Rob, and you're listening to episode number 286. And as always, we thank you for spending a few minutes of your day with us.
We do.
Really appreciate it.
And we hope you've read through all of the federal aviation regulations.
Yeah, like...
oh, wait. I haven't.
I definitely haven't.
I don't think any droney has. It's ridiculous to even think someone has.
You have done something, though, with all those pretty little tabs you got going there.
Well, this is for my pilot's exam, which I passed.
Atta baby.
So, yeah, this was part of ground school. Why do I have this big, thick book full of BS?
I think we're going to do a little update. Right?
That is right.
We wanted to cover something from yesterday's podcast that we thought we needed to expound on a little bit.
So we had someone who called in, if you remember, saying, hey, I need to film a tough mutter. I need to get closer than 500 feet, blah, 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 blah.
Fly over people. That was part of the question.
And our answer was a little lackluster, in my opinion. And I talked to John Rupert about this, the drone lawyer on hand here at Drone U. If you're not familiar with John Rupert, he has a book about drone law. And when we really got into this, it really made me think how useless the 333 is. And I say that because of this. In order for anyone to film closer than 500 feet to a structure, here, let me just read this. An altitude, this is FAR 91.119, Section C. Other than congested areas, an altitude of 500 feet above the surface except over open water or sparsely populated areas. In those cases, the aircraft may not be operated closer than 500 feet to any person, vessel, vehicle, or structure. So here's why I think the 333 is really, really, really hypocritical. It comes down to one thing. How many people have gotten 333s for aerial data collection, aerial photography for real estate, aerial videography for real estate? And I say that because if they are filming real estate, there's going to be an awful lot of houses that are within 500 feet of the subject that they're trying to film.
Yeah, probably 95% of them as far as the people that are actually doing this work and where they're doing the work. Certainly, I think all we're seeing, Paul, in sort of a nutshell, is that the 333, and we all know this isn't news, but it wasn't built, it wasn't designed, it wasn't written for drones.
Square peg, round hole.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's nothing else for them to use, and so that's what they're kind of funneling drone pilots into as well. I mean, I think we all know that.
That's definitely true. So if anyone is flying real estate, you're probably breaking the law. Is anyone coming after you? Probably not. Probably not, because they don't have the resources to do that.
Well, they don't have the resources. And again, as we've been saying ad nauseum, it's really about safety, so continue to fly safe, etc.
Yeah.
But just know that technically...
We've been saying that for ages.
Of course. Technically, as it relates to the 333, you have an issue, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's completely hypocritical. But we have really been saying this since even when Rob had hair. I mean, that's how long we have been saying it. So it's been quite some time. But here's the thing. So if you have a 333 and you fly closer than 500 feet, which I know 95% of you do, as do I, but I'm glad that we have this in our 333. But if you have just aerial data collection, you're not covered. And I'm going to take a quote from an article, and we will put this article in the show notes. But this is a quote from John Rupert on his blog. Mere aerial data collection operations do not have the conditions to fly closed than 500 feet. Closed set acts like an upgraded version of the aerial data would allow you to do that. So you would actually have to have the MPTOM amendment to fly closer than 500 feet to structure, vehicle, vessels, people, a stick of wood.
Cool. So a stick of wood. So specifically, what does the MPTOM say? Go ahead. Sorry.
The MPTOM gives you an exemption from the 91.119 section C. But here's the thing that I find really funny. A lot of people have said, and I think this is something that we should write an article on. I mean, this is really important. For everyone who has an MPTOM, people have said, oh, well, that's only for motion picture filming. That's only for closed set filming.
Why would they think that?
Because it says Motion Picture Operating Manual.
Yeah,
that's literally the name of the
amendment. Exactly, Motion Picture
So-
and Television Operations Manual.
Yes.
So, but go ahead.
Anyway, so if you do want to fly closer than 500 feet, you can, but every single person would have to sign the participation form. So let's bring this back into the Tough Mudder. So as far as I understand it, every single person at the Tough Mudder, if they had signed the participation agreement, he could absolutely fly closer than 500 feet. The issue is that he'd have to get every single person to do it. Now, it's funny because the way that the FAA says who is a participant and who is not doesn't make, again, square peg, round hole.
Right.
They say non-participating persons are the public, spectators, media, etc., not associated with the filming production, which I find really interesting because if you've ever been on set, there are media everywhere.
Right.
And it's media that's actually hired by the production company themselves to take photos, behind-the-scenes stuff,
to document
BTS.
the event, essentially.
Exactly.
Right.
So that in itself doesn't make sense. Spectators, that does make sense. I understand that. The public, that does make sense. But they say the way that the FAA defines a participating person or authorized person is all persons associated with the filming of the production must be briefed on the potential risk of the proposed flight operations, and they must acknowledge and accept those risks. So one thing that John Rupert was telling me is that all of these 333 guys that put up the signs that say, you're being filmed, you agree that drones are flying around, that does not cover you.
Right.
Because there has to be written consent. There has to be a consent and acknowledgement. And when you have a sign, there is no acknowledgement. So for the guys that are running around like, oh, just put up a sign, guys, you're gonna be okay. Okay. No, that's you're not okay. And I'm gonna
let's
punch
think
you in the throat.
Let's think about the point of all that, because ultimately what we're talking about is if something goes wrong, right? That's really what all this is about, because short of something going wrong, unless you're just flying like an idiot and the FAA comes after you and finds you because of that, we're talking about if something happens, somebody gets hurt, that's when it becomes an issue. If you're an attorney and all there was a sign, that's really an easy case,
Yeah.
right? Well, my client didn't see it, whatever, but if they acknowledged that you were going to be there and they still chose to be in the event, well, then that's a different case.
True.
That attorney has to deal with. They may still be able to win, but it's going to be a tougher road.
That is very true. So to the guy who wants to fly this event, yeah, you can fly closer than 500 feet. And you would just need to have that form, the participant form, saying they agree, they acknowledge, blah,
Right.
blah, blah, blah.
And one thing we've talked about, Paul, is that maybe some of these guys like this, and I'm so sorry I don't remember his name from yesterday, but when he talks to the organizers of these events, and anybody out there who's doing that that's going to be flying these events, talk to them about getting this verbiage on the registration form so that's all done up front.
Meaning the registration form of the event itself.
Correct.
I just want to clarify that.
Yes,
Because
that's
I
right.
didn't understand that earlier, but I get what you're saying now.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is something that you could totally do. John was like, you could also get many of the runners to volunteer and shoot them after the event, and then they would be participants according to the motion picture manual. Kind of sounds like a wash to me. I mean, it's kind of like, just get everyone to be a participant, and then it's easy. If you don't, then guess what? You get 10 people at the very end of the event to do the damn event again, and then you just film those 10 people.
Right. Or again, like we talked about in the last podcast, you film it from a distance and
Yeah, it's just like,
off to the side. Well,
I say that because if you're, okay, so in this article, you'll see there is a 500-foot bubble. In order to be 500 feet away, that's literally 100 feet over and 400 feet up.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a
sure.
lot.
And again, ultimately, so thank you, Mr. Producer John. It was Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. So sorry I forgot your name. Anyways, And ultimately we're not discounting what we talked about yesterday and the fact that it's really about safety. And that, in all this discussion, that doesn't go away, obviously.
No, we're just kind of breaking down the legal, technical BS, because that's what it is.
Okay.
Sorry, this is the millennial generation talking here.
That's right.
We're sick of bullshit. I almost said it.
Anyways, we actually do have another question for today, Paul.
I know we do have another question today, but I really wanted to clear that up.
Yeah. Glad.
And again, as far as a legal standpoint, if you do not have a 333 and someone were still acknowledge the presence of the drone, I've heard other legal arguments that would still qualify and save you from liability. But we're not giving you legal advice. Consult an attorney. Consult John Rupert, frankly.
Indeed.
Consult any attorney. Anyway, let's get to today's question. Christopher from Tennessee. I feel like we've answered this question a dozen times, but keep asking those questions. We really do love it. If you have a question, go to askdroneu.com, upload that question, and if you really want to check out and be more involved in all the photos and all the things that we're doing, all the things that our members are doing, you can check that out on Instagram, instagram.com. And that's at the DroneU. Check us out on facebook.com/DroneU. We also are we're gonna be live on Facebook next week. We're excited about that. Very excited about that.
We are excited about that. That'll be fun.
So you'll be seeing more baldness and more whatever I am. Which questionable all around.
You're hairful.
Let's get into today's question.
Hey guys, it's Chris in Nashville, Tennessee again. I had a question about the Osmo. I plan on shooting my first house this Saturday with the Osmo, also with Inspire and Phantom for the outside. It's about 30 acres and the house is about 5,000 square foot. Just wonder if you had any tips or tricks that I should know going in. I've got an order placed with Multicopter Warehouse right now for the tripod and the extension stick, and I also ordered the roller that Paul recommended from Amazon, so it all should be in this week. But just was wondering if y'all had anything you could recommend, and also think about coming out there in possibly the first week of April to do some hands-on training with Paul if it's available. I'll email you guys about that, but couldn't do it without the help from the DroneU and all the information you guys provide and the...
Thank you guys so much from Tennessee here.
We love it. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for the question. Good question. And yeah, it is something that we've talked about before, but it's what a lot of people are doing. And we always say, if you're out there doing it and questions come up, ask.
Definitely. So as you'll see, when we played the question, you saw the video. I actually shot that video. Very cool house, right overlooking the river. Beautiful area. And I use the Osmo inside of that house. Now, I understand, I was going to say at first, like, why would you bring the Inspire and a Phantom to your shoot? But I did the same thing a couple weeks ago, so I can't really say anything about it because there are benefits to doing that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand that. They're like, why would you bring a Phantom 3 Pro and an Inspire 1 to the same shoot? Well, Phantom 3 Pro is the backup to the Inspire, but...
Well, frankly, you have a case that has both of them in it.
That is true.
So that
is
makes
true.
it real easy.
But I also love to use the Phantom through complicated, difficult shots.
Okay.
Like if I want to go through the trees over a river, which I did a couple weeks ago, I'm going to use the Phantom because I have a little bit more confidence. If I drop the Phantom, if I lose the Phantom, it's like, meh.
Right.
If I lose the Inspire, it's like, ah!
Big difference for sure.
Yeah, that is true.
We would all feel that.
Yeah.
Paul.
Rob.
Anyways.
As far as tips and tricks go, again, use that Phantom for the obstacle shots, the tight shots near things to reveal through obstacles. If you're shooting in daylight, make sure you're using that filter. And also, a lot of people ask me, and Chris has already booked his time to come out here and get some training, which I'm really excited about. I'm going to have 2 days with him. I'm going to send him through the obstacle course, and when he comes out the other side, I know he's going to be a great pilot, I'm glad we have the proven system. I'm glad it works, and I love doing it, and it's a lot of fun, and we've really added to that obstacle course, and it's just a blast, so I'm excited for Chris to come out here.
Definitely.
Anyway, that being said, when it comes to flying the Inspire, I do not use an iPad, period. I don't like to use the iPad. Because if you ever accidentally touch the screen of the iPad trying to get something else, you can mess up the exposure.
Okay.
Meaning, you don't have adjustable exposure on the X3, but if you tap on the screen and it's going to set the exposure for that area. And the great thing that I love about using my FlySight monitor is that the exposure is just, it's not going to change.
Right.
If you go from straight down on super white sand up to the sky, yeah, you're going to see a difference in exposure as you go up, which is why sometimes I teach people, when you're doing these upper reveals, you need to be really careful how you set your settings when you're doing the upper reveal, because you don't want everything to change as you actually reveal up.
Right.
So meaning you don't want the picture and the color and the white balance to change as you're revealing up, because that's super annoying. And you kind of take out those variables when you use the FlySight monitor. You're going to get much better feed through the FlySight monitor. Although, Rob, I think it's time we get those range extenders for the Inspire. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Really? How far do you want to go? And why?
I would love to see if we can make it to Santa Fe on a battery. I'm kidding.
And why?
No, I actually really want it because I just want a stronger signal, and I fly FPV so much.
That makes sense.
I really need a better signal. As far as the Osmo goes, what do you think is the best way to control the Osmo? Because I see so many people make these mistakes, and I even saw an article on Drone Coalition, and it was just like, oh my God, no.
What do you mean by control? So if you're talking, you want to mount it on something, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Either the roller or a suction cup or some way of stabilizing it? Is that what you're getting
so there's a lot of people are saying, oh yeah, you can totally walk through a house as long as you keep your arm movements pretty solid, you can do that. I don't agree with that at all. I think that you can get much more beautiful reveals, much more camera movement, utilizing the app. I know that sounds crazy, but it's actually really easy. I do use the suction cup mount. We've got some images of that here if you want to check it out. And what I really love is that I'll set up the suction cup on the side of a wall. I'll set it up on a countertop. I'll set it up on a window. And, when you're shooting real estate, you're supposed to be shooting from the corners to get like the biggest feel.
Right.
All realtors know that. So when I have a suction cup, I can literally go to a window in the corner and pop it. And the highest point, I don't have to worry about me being in the frame. I can walk outside of the house, control the camera through the DJI Go app.
That's awesome.
And it's it's
really
so
cool.
smooth.
Yeah.
It's so smooth. It's beautiful. And now whenever I shoot a house, every realtor is like, do you have that little camera on a stick thing?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
That
yeah.
doodad?
Yeah, I have one of those. Even Jason bought an Osmo.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
It's just so versatile. You can do so much with it.
You really can. I mean, it is an amazing tool. I also do use that sliding dolly. It's like a little skateboard, and it has an extension arm on the skateboard to a 1/4-inch screw, and that screw goes into the Osmo itself. There's a new one though on Amazon that actually has it's like a little handle, so you can actually push the slider like while being like 6 or 7 feet away, which I really love because I'm not gonna lie, and I've done this before. I'll be pushing the slider, and then like I'll get on my phone and tap, and you'll get the little blue circle to begin moving the camera, and I'll be pushing and moving the camera at the same time, and you get a sliding pan, and it looks so cool.
It
looks
very
so cool. You can do sliding pan tilt reveals up. Like the amount of complicated things that you can do is just awesome, and it's endless. So you can be super creative.
So the Osmo has really revolutionized the filming of the interior of a piece of property.
Yeah, so I didn't really want to admit this earlier, but when I was shooting real estate with a regular camera and a tripod, it would take me 90 minutes inside of the house to get everything.
Yeah.
I could fly a house, get in and out in 2 hours, but now I can fly a house, get in and out in under 60 minutes.
Which means, by the way, you're making more money.
My margin is higher.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I learned what margins mean from Rob.
I have a feeling you already knew what margins mean, but thank you very much. That's very kind of you. What other tips would you give him maybe from filming the outside, for example, being creative with the movements of the drone? Or what other tips would you give Chris?
So this is something that we're actually talking about in our advanced videography class that we are filming right now. And I want to go back into the house and into the Osmo in a second, but I'll answer your question. Think of everything as an organic movement. Most drone pilots They see a flight line, they want to stick to that flight line, they get to that flight line, and then they change direction and go to another flight line. And I really call this like the linear flight mentality, and it's what every new person does. They're like, whoop, whoop, whoop,
with the yaw.
whoop, whoop. Yeah, and the camera's going like this.
Yeah.
I mean, when I saw that in Star Wars, I was like, oh no. Yeah, it is totally true. So that being said, think of everything as an organic movement. Think about creating circles around the house, but then elevating around the house. And you'll see some of those shots in this video.
So think about like where you're starting from and where you're going to end up and how you're going to get there. Those kinds of things.
Every single shot should tell some sort of story. It's a narrative from the beginning to the end. And frankly, you're going to wow people if you fly through obstacles. You're going to wow people if you can keep the house in frame as you're moving around, and then you slowly tilt up and you've got the beautiful landscape in the background. So, I mean, like, you can really have fun with it.
That actually brings up a really interesting question, I think, because is it possible to overdo the flying such that you take the attention away from the house?
Yes.
So that's something actually to be careful of. Like if you do, I could do a really cool shot through X.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're thinking about that and not the house anymore.
True, but those shots do engage the potential customers and clients to actually watch the video. So it is something that I like to do. But an example of that is like right when we were doing the wake surfing in Mexico, and we were flying under the rope while the boat was in motion and while there was a rider on the rope. And that looks really cool. If you're a drone pilot, you're like, oh, wow, they're moving at 25 miles an hour. He's flying under the rope. There's only a 3-foot gap from the rope to the water.
That's crazy. I freak out every time I see that shot. I love watching that.
And because you know what goes into it, but most people don't know what goes into it. So it does do exactly what you said, which is takes away from the house. It takes away from the beauty, the aura, the vibe, whatever you want to call it. From hippie to conservative, there's a word for it, beautiful.
Yeah, so maybe the one way to look at that, Paul, and correct me if you would think differently, but that is to do something like that at the beginning of the video to kind of capture their attention.
Yes.
And then transition to more of what's going on with the house or the property.
That is true. In traditional storytelling, they used to tell you, that you would introduce the characters, you would introduce the story, and then the story would slowly build into a climax, and then there would be the denouement, and then from the denouement, you would come down in the story. In the age of the internet, the denouement is in the first 6 seconds of the video. You got a climax like, woo, and then come back down.
Or they're gone.
Yeah, so,
right.
You're totally right. Those shots definitely do help engage someone. And these are things that you've got to be thinking about as a videographer. Just like we said with the Section 323 and how having the MPOM is going to, in the end, make you less liable. In the end, you're going to have more freedom and flexibility. That is a competitive advantage.
Sure.
And it is also a competitive advantage, and more so of a competitive advantage, to have the flight skill to even fly close to obstacles or through obstacles. But if you can, you do have the competitive advantage over your rivals. And as I said in the book, for all the guys wasting their time calling federal bureaucracies on other drone pilots, they should be really worried, because in the time that they're schmoozing with these federal agencies, other drone pilots are honing their skills.
That's right.
So
absolutely. Priorities.
Seriously, guys, priorities. So going back into the house with the Osmo and the slider, one thing I really like to do is use the slider on the countertops in the kitchen,
right,
and kind of showcase, the faucets and whatnot. And for dronies out there, you guys have to remember there are rules to editing. There are rules to how we visualize everything. And I give the example of watch the news tonight. Mm-hmm. It's the way that they edit is called continuity editing. So it's a wide shot, narrow, wide, and that could be wide, narrow, wide, but it's always going to be some progression of different shots. So when you're shooting a house and you look at the kitchen, you want that wide shot and then close in, maybe so that you're just viewing parts of the kitchen, and then close in on the faucet, or close in on, the stainless steel, whatever, Wolf stove,
Sure. Whatever a main feature of that particular room is what you're going to be zeroing in on.
If you are new to videography and you're getting into drones, like, everything should be looked at, and I say it the three rules, right? 3 different vantage points. So if I'm looking at you, right? I'm going to film you from here. I'm going to film you from here. I'm going to film you from here.
Right.
And then if I really want to make a great production, I'm also going to get 3 different levels of zoom. So I'm going to go tight, like kind of wide, super wide. And it would be super wide so you could see both of us talking.
But then when you've got all that footage, you've got to be careful in how you produce that at the end because you don't want it too choppy to where it gets annoying to watch.
That is very true.
So that's the other side of that.
And, to go to that even more, most dronies are filming luxury homes, and they have to remember that their audience is older, slower. I've had someone actually get dizzy from watching one of my videos. Well, no, in the very beginning.
I believe you.
No, Mary Farrell was like, I'm getting dizzy watching this. You rotate over these homes. Like, can you do it slower? Can you slow down this? And I was like, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, that's good insight, actually.
Because she is the demographic. She
Right.
is 70 years old, lots of money, does nothing all day long. So she is the demographic.
No offense.
Hey, if you work for 40 years, you earned it,
Okay,
so,
fair enough.
All right.
Yeah, still, she might. Yeah, anyways.
there's
That's
different
funny.
ends to the spectrum. If,
That's true.
If you're 30 years old and all you do is sit on your butt, then there's a problem.
That's
But if
true.
you're 70 and you worked for a long time, it's very different. So
That's true.
I think we answered this question though. So overall, with the Osmo, use the app to control the speed. I did slow down my settings as far as the joystick control, but I'm pretty sure that only affected the joystick. Also, you want to make sure to, I will say, and I don't know if this is really speculative. I don't know if this is for sure, but I really like controlling the Osmo from my iPhone 6S instead of my iPad because my 6S has force touch. So when I actually touch and then put pressure on it, that's when the blue circle comes up and I'm able to actually move the framing of the camera around. And I found it's a lot easier to use my phone than the iPad.
Interesting. No,
So-
that's a great point. So I'm going to ask you a couple other questions here for Chris and other listeners. Talk briefly about time of day. Number one, what kind of lighting? And I'm speaking particularly from outside the house now. And would you be doing it? So again, he was talking about 30 acres, 5,000 square foot house, Inspire versus Phantom. Just kind of talk that through.
What
a
do you
little
mean?
bit.
What do you mean? What do you
Meaning, which of those are you going to use? What time of day are you going to be flying? What kind of light are you looking for? Those kinds of things.
So with such a big property, frankly, the Inspire is going to be really useful to you. But that being said, you're also going to find difficulty in ways to draw in the audience. Again, you don't want these big, wide, super high up aerials. You
Okay.
really want more in your face, like what it's like to actually be there, showcasing the driveway, showcasing the hiking trails.
Right.
But one thing I do want to mention, and a lot of dronies don't do this, and I find it fascinating. A lot of dronies do not price per the hour. And I don't mean per the hour meaning I'm going to charge you $250 per hour. I mean, I'll film your house, right? Regular filming, middle of the day, okay?
Right.
That's going to be $1,000.
Okay.
But if you want the beautiful color in the sky, you really want that high dynamic range look where you can see the colors in the sky, the colors in the house, the colors in the ground, the color in the trees, where it really draws you in and you get that beautiful golden hour type footage. I can do that. It's going to take a little bit more time though, and because my girlfriend always wants me home at 5, it's going to make it even more difficult. So
Right.
for an additional $500, I can film golden hour for you.
And
9 times out of 10, they're like, oh yeah, well, why wouldn't you do that to begin with? And I was like, you're right, exactly.
sure.
But I just got $500 more out of you. So
That-
we call this the upsell principle.
yeah,
So-
no, absolutely. So all that said, obviously, you're either going to do it in the morning when the sun's coming up, right? I know you've done that quite a bit as well.
Yes, and it all depends on which way the house is facing. For me.
Okay.
So,
Of course. Good point.
Yeah. So another thing too, dronies, you're killing me by not doing this. I will give John the photo to show. It's the long exposure of the West Side photo. You gotta have lights. If you're gonna do these long exposure photos, you're gonna get the shots that the realtors really want. I'm sure this guy's doing photo and video, by the way. There's an additional upsell there. You know, like, hey, I can do these long exposure photos where you're going to see the house and the lights surrounded in this beautiful area, but you're also going to see the surrounding lights and maybe even lights from the road that are streaking by to really give it that cool effect. Thing is you've got to have lights on the house, meaning the lights have to be turned on
And
the
this
house.
doesn't matter the time of day, right?
Yeah, this is after sunset, so this is civil twilight. This
Okay.
is like sun's going down. And again, I agree with David Boggs. You'll get much better results out of a Phantom 3 than an Inspire 1. I really don't understand why the codec is like the way it is, but it is. So,
Okay.
That being said, though, my original point that a lot of drones don't do this is they don't turn on all the lights on the house, whether they're
Right.
shooting in the middle of the day, they're shooting at night. It doesn't matter. Turn the damn lights on.
Yeah.
So also, if you do those long exposures, you're going to need to bring additional lights. One of the things that I want to do on our new Drone U car is have a massive light bar on the top.
Okay.
So I can pull the car up
Our
in front
new
of the
Drone U
house.
car.
John knows what I'm talking about. And we turn the light bar on and poof,
Is
lights
that
up
the
the whole
Sprinter van
house.
that we're getting?
Either that or an F-150. I haven't made up my mind yet. So I don't know. Those F-150s are pretty BA.
They are.
So-
No doubt about it. I
And the
dig 'em.
fact that you get 27 miles to the gallon is pretty awesome, too.
Yeah, no doubt. I wouldn't know about that with any of the cars that I drive. But anyways, Chris, I hope that answers your question. Obviously, if you've got follow-up questions, shoot them on over. I'm guessing that you've actually already done this shoot. But let us know how it went, and I know you'll be doing more.
Yeah.
So hopefully this helps with those, and we'd really like to hear from you as to what you're learning and if we're answering your questions, and if not, let us know.
Last thing, did you see the new Newsweek article?
You showed it to me.
I did show it to you. I will also post that in the show notes for you guys. Check it out. It's finally the mass media saying that drone registration is illegal. And it's like, you're finally saying it. Why didn't you say it when the FAA was putting out all their propaganda? It's like, oh, now that it's over, it's okay to say it. We cannot be a reactive society, or else we're going to end up just like Rome did a few thousand years ago. It's going to tumble. It's going to tumble. We've got to be proactive. We've got to be a voice. This is something I say in the book over and over again. We have to progress this industry through education, through knowledge, and through becoming a voice. That's why we're sitting here. I think you guys appreciate it. We have more and more people listen all the time.
That's right.
88,000 downloads is a whole lot for this year already. I mean, we're already bypassing or about to bypass last year's total
Entire
annual
year.
number.
Yeah, so thank you guys. We
Yeah.
really appreciate that, and I think you're sharing with your friends, the other people that you know that are flying. That's really important. We appreciate that. Subscribe if you can, so it gets delivered to your inbox, and your reviews are critically important, particularly on iTunes. Is that fair to say?
Definitely.
Definitely on iTunes. We want to hear what you guys have to say because we listen and we take those comments seriously.
And you know what, guys? If you subscribe on iTunes, you'll get the downloads already on your phone. So if you're headed out to a job and you just want to listen to some drone talk, you never know. You may learn something. It may help you out. It may help you be more efficient, increase your margins, make more money, and turn your passion into profit.
Indeed.
That's my sales voice.
Nicely
What do you
done.
think? I can go a little bit more salesy. People think that I'm like, oh, well, you talk about asking questions in Facebook all the time. It's like, you really want to hear my salesy voice?
Sure.
Well, hey, Bob, here we are. We're selling drones. They can fly 400 feet or more, 2 miles away at 40 miles an hour. Why you don't have one yet, I don't know, but I've got 10.
That's good.
I don't have 10. Anyway, hope that's going to give you guys a laugh. And that's also going to do it for us today. My name is Paul.
I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Drone U.
We believe that videos, images, words, and sounds have the absolute power to inform, inspire, and entertain. We are united under the virtues of safety and knowledge. We are a training community of learners and teachers who encourage and energize each other to achieve greatness. We are pilots, videographers, photographers, freelancers, business owners, enthusiasts, experts, and apprentices. We are creators. We are the Drone U.